Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, good evening, dear friends. This is the Wednesday night Sutta discussion at the Empty Cloud Monastery in New Jersey, USA. We've been looking into the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and related to that, here at the monastery, we've had some lovely discussions about the mindfulness of the body, the first of the 4. Today, I'm going to show you Sutta 119 in the middle length discourses, which is called the Kāyagatāsati Sutta, mindfulness of Kaya. We had realized that translating Kaya as the body can be misleading and confusing for this sutta. When we think of the body, people just think of the material body, like the mind-body problem. The mind is one thing and the body is another thing. But in the Dhamma, the Kaya is a living body endowed with 6 senses, the 5 senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and then the last sense of the mind, which cognizes thoughts or ideas. And in several other places that we've talked to over the past couple of weeks, we see that the Kāyasati or the Kāyagatāsati is very much involved with the what's called samvara, the protection of the senses or restraint of the sense faculties. So if you see an object with the eye, if you are practicing this mindfulness, then unwholesome and harmful states of mind don't invade the mind and stay there. Now, that protection is not because you're protecting your eyeball. It's not even because you're protecting the brain exactly, or protecting the aspect of the mind which is having the minimum basic cognizing of an idea of what that object is, but rather it's a more complex process where the feelings, the state of mind, the volitional formations, all are coming together and evolving into a reaction to the object that is seen. And so when we talk about the restraint of the senses, it's actually restraining you, the entire reaction. So here in this sutta, I'm following the suggestion of Bhikkhu Agachita, and I'm translating Kaya as the subjective experiencer. So this is a slightly abbreviated form of the sutta. It's wonderful, it's marvelous how mindfulness of the Kaya, of the subjective experience, has been said by the Blessed One who knows and sees, the Arahant, the fully enlightened, to be of great fruit great benefit when developed and repeatedly practiced. So this is the mindfulness that looks within. Now it gives 18 practices. In the Satipatthana Sutta, there are 14 practices. In this sutta, there are the 14, plus the first four of the jhanas, which are, you'll see how this goes. In the breath meditation, it's a very standard, same description that you've seen in the Satipatthana. The bhikkhu goes to a place of meditation, breathing in long, he understands I breathe in long. Breathing in out long, he understands I breathe out long. He understands the short breath, the long breath. He trains himself. I shall breathe experiencing the whole body. He trains, I shall breathe out experiencing the whole body. So then he trains that I shall breathe in tranquilizing the body process. Breathing out, tranquilizing the body process. And the metaphor is given of the turner who's, you've got a log or a piece of wood, and it's on a spindle, and as you pull the treadle, or I guess these days you have an electric one, and it spins around, and then you can take your cutting tool, your chisel, and whittle it into shapes so it can come out as a perfectly round shape, or as some kind of a banister or something like that. And so the tool, that's your attention, isn't it? And the tool is connected to the wood. And he is aware of whether he's making a long curve or a short curve. So this is the beginning of the mindfulness, just to take our awareness of our own person, this living body, which is you. Normally, the breath is not. Most of the time, one is not conscious of breathing. Sometimes you are conscious of breathing. Most of the time, you don't have to exert any intention to breathe, but you can breathe on purpose. So if you say you want to breathe long, take a really long, deep breath, you can intentionally go. And then if you want to take a really strong out breath, you can intentionally take a strong breath. But if you're not exerting any intention onto it, then the body just breathes by itself. So the first part of this is to be able to take different aspects of the way in which we know this living body which we occupy, and bring it from unconsciousness into conscious awareness. Second part of this here is the suggestion of tranquilizing the body process, allowing the agitation, whatever agitation or tension is present in the body, or whatever agitation or tension is available in the subjective experiencer, to allow those things to gradually and gently calm down, settle down, and become calm. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the longer sutta on the breath, this is simply the first section of it. There's 3 other sections of the Anapanasati Sutta, which goes through stages that are equating to levels of samadhi, levels of jhana practice. And an aspect of the jhana practice is this process of letting go of agitation, letting go which is too much excitement, and allowing the mind to progressively become more and more calm and equanimous. And so this first instruction here, training to tranquilize the body process, is a first step towards being able to gain samadhi. Now, the refrain in the sutta, which comes for each one of the 18 meditations that are given here, is not the same as you have in the Satipatthana. It's different. Here, it's a samadhi refrain. As he abides thus diligent, ardent, self-controlled, his memories and intentions based on the household life are abandoned. With their abandoning, his mind becomes settled in himself, quieted, brought to singleness, and concentrated. That's how the bhikkhu develops mindfulness of the subjective experiencer. So this is a samadhi refrain. Within the Satipatthana, samadhi is definitely implied, and there are different debates among different teachers or different meditators to what extent actually when one is if there is a full practice of Satipatthana that would be completely separated from samadhi, like somebody who doesn't have any samadhi at all, any concentration at all, would they be able to really practice, fully practice the Satipatthana? And there's an idea definitely that the Satipatthana is creates the condition for entering into jhana or into samadhi, into concentration. It says in another sutta that sati is the nimitta of samadhi. And the significance of that sentence is that sati is the condition for samadhi. Mindfulness is the condition for gaining concentration or gaining the unification of the mind. I think it's, I might mention at this point here that mindfulness is not just paying attention to these 4 different areas of mindfulness: the body, the feelings, the states of mind, and the dhammas. Mindfulness is not only being aware of the internal and external, and of the arising and vanishing of the phenomenon. There are some other aspects of mindfulness that I think are helpful in seeing how mindfulness creates the condition for samadhi. I'm going to mention 4. One of them is clear comprehension. So whatever it is that you're examining, you see it clearly. You're awake, you're not oblivious to what's going on. and you see things clearly as they are, without being biased or blinded by any kind of prejudice or unskillful concepts that lead you to have a deluded type of theory about what's going on, but instead in a way which is not really heavily loaded down with a lot of concepts, to directly see things just as they are, as they appear to you, as you can discover them. And then the next quality is diligence. It's good to be mindful for just the length of one finger snap, but it's also very helpful, very beneficial to be continuously mindful and to have experienced the frustration of trying to mindfully be aware of an object, like you want to be mindfully aware of the breath, and you see that the mind frequently loses track of the breath and is wandering off into other kinds of thoughts and so forth. And you come back again and again, keep coming back, keep diligently making the effort to take those aspects of the of experience that are usually unconscious and to make them aware. So to be diligent, to be making that continuous effort. And then the next quality is freedom from reactivity. So one does not have desire, reactions of desire and dejection about the things that you experience. And this freedom from reactivity, I think, goes directly to the qualifications the characteristic when you enter into the first jhana, that the mind is free from sensual desire, free from unwholesome states of mind. So an aspect, the benefit, the gain of mindfulness is that one overcomes those kinds of reactions. And then the last quality is the internal and external aspect. When you speak about the subjective experiencer in this Kāyā, this first part, that is emphasizing, that translation is emphasizing the internal aspect of it. And this is a very refreshing correction to a mistake that some meditators make, where they think that when we practice, when we become free from attachment, that a person becomes like a zombie, disconnected from reality, disconnected from happiness and sadness, disidentified from what they're experiencing in a way that feels frightening and unhelpful. But when we think of this Kāya Nupassana in terms of actually being in touch with our personal experience, that's another alternative translation that I have for this Kāyagatāsati, is this personal mindfulness. It shows a way in which, without grasping onto acquiring and clinging to an identity, nevertheless, one can be in touch with one's personal experience, because you don't have any other experience available. it's the only one you have is your personal experience. And so being in touch in that way. But then in the sort of the further contemplation, we compare ourselves to others, and we realize that we are not different than others, that we are the same as others. And that reflection then both helps one to tame the desire, the reactivity, and helps us to tame the clinging to identity. Okay, so those four: clear comprehension, diligence, freedom from desire and dejection, and the internal and external. So in this case, you see that there is in this refrain an aspect of learning how to control. So you gain some agency over your mind. And as you know, people who are not in control of their own mind or their own thoughts suffer a lot because they're a victim of their reactions, because they're not able to prevent their reactions. But a person who has some agency that they're able to choose, then they are a happier, calmer, more relaxed person. So this is like the marshmallow test. The child who's able to wait 5 minutes without taking the marshmallow grows up to be a happy, healthy adult because they're able to control their impulse. But the person who is not able to control their impulses is continuously subjected to a lot of turmoil in their life. So with gaining that amount of self-control, then it's possible to be in a calm way to see what's happening. I'm going to read you the friend from the Agama, which is a little bit similar. Thus, a monk follows his physical actions, knowing the above as it truly is. If he thus goes into seclusion and lives alone, his thoughts aren't careless. He cultivates diligence, stops mental disturbances, and attains a concentrated state of mind. After attaining a concentrated state of mind, he then knows the above as it truly is. This is called a monk who cultivates the mindfulness of the body. So this refrain even more strongly emphasizes that this is a teaching of samadhi. And the similarity between this sutta and the Agama version is in the Savartivada tradition, which is still early, although it's outside of the Pali canon. But it could make us think that this approach is authentic to the early teachings, to the early levels. Then I'm going to go a little faster with these next contemplations. The postures, walking, standing, sitting, lying down. However the body is disposed, he understands accordingly. So this is, again, it's part of proprioception, knowing the dimensions and location of your body, and it's part of self-knowledge. We have this naturally and intuitively without even being aware of it all the time. If you have proper proprioception, you could take a morsel of food and bring it to your mouth, and you wouldn't miss, because you know where your mouth is. That's and this is it's part of the self-image. Proprioception also includes when you looked at yourself, your own reflection in the mirror, or you looked at other people. And it also includes, could be some social ideas. If you compared yourself to your sister and said either I'm more beautiful or she's more beautiful. And those kind of comparings or different kinds of body images, all of those things come into the idea we have about our body. But the Buddha is just saying, just take, it's very simple awareness that you normally don't pay any attention to, and consciously pay attention to it. I'm sitting. What's happening when I'm sitting? What's happening when I'm walking? The next is what's called full awareness. That's the phrase, the clear comprehension phrase. And that's when moving about, when looking at something or looking away from something. When moving the muscles, when wearing the robes, when eating, drinking, supping, when using the toilet, standing, sitting, walking, talking, keeping silent. I'm going to, this is a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to associate this with you have when you're practicing mindfulness, sitting on a cushion in usually in one or two postures. Probably most people it's the sitting posture and the walking posture, and usually they have their eyes closed. Usually they're in a quiet room. Usually while they're in practicing mindfulness, they're not talking, and so that's very good for first working out what it is to pay attention, to one's subjective experience, but then it's a huge project to extend that same conscious knowledge of what's happening with one's subjective awareness when you're doing these different activities. So something just as simple like during meditation of opening the eyes, looking, and seeing what happens when you look. Here, the metaphor of the different beasts attached to a post. They're attached on a leash to a post. So if they didn't have the post in the middle, each beast wants to go in their own direction, and they stand for the six senses, and whichever one is the strongest becomes the dominant. And it can be, even with looking, if one is not mindful, one can be carried away with looking. Like if you're watching a show, you could be carried away from looking and find it like almost impossible to pull yourself away from looking at that show. Or even I had an experience years ago that on one of my solitary retreats in the forest, the kuti I was in had a large window, and there were quite a few birds in the forest that would come around in the morning, and they would be, flitting about. And when it was early in the morning, it would be foggy, and the birds would sort of like appear out of the fog and disappear. It was very beautiful, but it was so interesting to notice how much enjoyment there was in watching the birds. And to be able to see, okay, like what's really happening with that. And throughout all of these activities, another sutta about this clear comprehension, this full awareness, mentions the value in being aware of the feelings, perceptions, and thoughts as they come and go throughout these different activities. So that's a very useful and practical way of doing that. Then the perception of the parts of the body, the 31 parts of the body. This is very often explained as it's called the asubha practice, or foulness or unattractiveness, as a way of overcoming the delight and sensual desire associated with the beauty of especially of the human form, and so that's does have an internal external aspect to it. And they say that there's a way, there's a Dhamma explanation of sexual attraction that says they like if a woman is attracted to a man, there's something about the femininity in that woman is attracted to the masculinity in that man, and there's some kind of a connection there, so that it's both she's experiencing her own like a inner nature, inner sensual nature, at the same time as taking delight in the other person. I also feel that this sutta can, this one lesson can be made even more practical and direct by simply directing awareness to what's inside the body. That would be called interoception. So if you're scanning, like if you come to the face, very often the face is very active because a lot of emotions happen in the face, so the face is doing a lot. So if you just relax and are just aware of the muscles in the face, so it's under the skin, aware of the the muscles around the eyeballs, around the face. You can be aware of the muscles, or you can go through the rest of the body and be aware if there's tension or something happening in the different muscles. My latest discovery is, when the body is getting ready to take some action, when there's something that's activated in order to do something, the blood goes out to the limbs, so there's more blood flowing to the limbs and the fingers and so forth. And then when it's at rest or relaxing, the blood is less at the limbs and more at the core. So if one is in a meditation, you might notice during your sit, we've been having longer meditation sits now, which can be challenging. You could notice that if you think of getting up from your meditation, that the limbs can become very uncomfortable because the blood has flowed from where it was before, and so you've got this blood throwing or nerve ending happening at the outside of the limbs, and you can just feel it and sit with that. Not that pleasant, but you can feel what that experience of what it is when just because of the thought of getting up to do something has caused this change inside the body, and experience how that is. And then within the core of the body, they say that the belly is said to be the second brain because there's many nerves, like more nerves in the belly than there are inside the head. So then you can definitely feel the different activities, the different organs of the body, the little motion of the when the belly is digesting food. You can feel the heat of that. You can feel the what's happening. All the different subtle movement on the inside of the body, and so that could be a part of this asubha meditation, the inside meditation, like to become aware of what's inside the body. I have one friend, a bhikkhuni, who's actually a really profound meditator, and she described like having like a lymph node issue or something like that, and being able to direct her awareness like to the lymph node, and to like be able to know what was going on there, that something was going on there, and to be able to report to the doctor that something was going on there. And they later on she got a hold of her notes from the medical record, and there was like a note in the record that said, "This patient claims to know what's going on inside of her body." And then sometime later, like 6 months later, they reached the conclusion that actually the patient was right all along. And then they put a different. They first had the note that this patient might be a hypochondriac or something, and later on they put the note that this patient has got an accurate understanding of their own body, and the medical care became much more cooperative after that. So it is possible to have those perceptions, and this is again like it's like our subjective experience, what we can know. How do we know? What's happening with the mind? Except by being able to look within, and the purely mental aspect, like forming a volition or something like that, is absolutely continuously and constantly reflected inside the material parts of the body. And so then by being able to really observe the materiality of the living body as the constant process of the body, then one can have a much more a fuller, possibly more accurate way of discerning what's going on with the mind. So far, this is I'm emphasizing on the simple, clear comprehension aspect of it. In the elements meditation, looking at the physical elements of the body apart from the living aspect of it, I'll put it this way. We have an idea, each person has an idea of themselves as a person, as an individual, and as a living individual. And our own personhood is naturally and normally very dear to us and can naturally be the object for clinging and attachment. The first part of this sutta is taking the subconscious aspect of how we know that we're a person and making it conscious. And then the next aspect of it is, in a way, dissecting that person in order to break up the delusion of an essence. So a person who is completely oblivious to what's going on within might be extremely attached to their selfhood, to their identity. But the identity is just something that's constructed. It's kind of out in space. It's not really connected to reality of their actual experiences. Or maybe it is connected, but they haven't questioned. They haven't questioned it. And all of these aspects of dissecting and separating and looking at the different parts are able to come to break up the attachment and break up the delusion that there's a single essential unit, which is the self. Then we come to the charnel ground meditations on the deceased corpse, and the main theme is knowing that this is looking at the other and knowing that this body is of such a nature. It will be like that. It's not exempt from that. And so looking forward to the time when this living person is finished and gone. This living person, meaning this body, this physical body, is going to be gone. It's going to be finished. As a result of these practices, and especially the aiming towards calming and coming away from reactivity, then one is set up for the jhana. And in the sutta here, they give the formula for the first 4 jhanas. Together with these beautiful metaphors and these similes for the description of the jhanas are very physical, showing how the 4 jhanas are to be experienced with the body. They are to be experienced subjectively. So the first jhana is secluded from sensual desire and unprofitable states of mind. It's got this happiness and pleasure from that seclusion. And it's got this beautiful metaphor of the skilled bathman who takes the bath powder, gradually sprinkling it with water, kneading it until the bath powder absorbs the moisture until it gets into a ball of soap as the bath powder absorbs more and more moisture. So in the same way, that then the happiness and pleasure of the jhana drench, steep, fill, and extend through the whole body, or extend through the entire subjective experience. So there's nothing in the entire subjective experience, nothing in the whole body without this. And then in the second jhana, where the thinking goes away, and the mind has a unification of the mind, and the happiness and pleasure is related to the unification. There's this gorgeous metaphor. Like a lake whose waters well up from below, having no inflow from the east, west, north, or south, nor yet replenished from the sky with showers, just this cool fountain of water welling up from within. So this fountain of water from within, drench, deepen, fill, and extend throughout the lake. So just the same way, the whole body is drenched with happiness. And then in the third jhana, the blissful aspect is too much agitation. The mind is inclining towards more calmness, and one abides in equanimity. And here the mindfulness is coming to the fore, so the clear seeing becomes more the prominent factor, so less the feeling aspect, more the mindful aspect, the full awareness. And they still feel pleasure with the body. So one is equanimous and mindful. And here the metaphor is a water lily pond in which some of the water lilies or lotuses are under the water and growing under the water. So they're completely drenched and filled with the water from the roots up to the tips, and nothing in the whole of those flowers is not completely steeped or filled with water. So in the same way. And then the last one, the fourth jhana, which is where the pleasure pain becomes no more not interesting anymore. And the mind goes away from pleasure pain. Mental pleasure and mental pain go away, or gone, have previously gone. And then you have the purity of mindfulness and equanimity. And this is compared to somebody sitting with covered in a white cloth. So the whole mind, the whole experience is nothing but that whiteness. The Sutta goes on to speak about, with further metaphors, about how mindfulness keeps Mara out. So Mara is sometimes called the evil one, who is a powerful divine being, a deva, who has a particular role of trying to stop the Blessed One from getting his enlightenment, or trying to persuade the Blessed One not to bother teaching, so that humans will not have a chance to gain enlightenment. or who has a particular role of blocking and preventing persons from getting from the Kama realm, the realm of sense desire, into the Brahma realm, the realm of the Brahma Viharas of loving kindness and compassion. It's said that the person who develops the four jhanas, if they didn't become enlightened, if they died in that state, they could be reborn in the Brahma realm. Or a person who practices the Brahma Viharas, who develops loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity to the point of samadhi. If they don't gain enlightenment, they could be reborn in the Brahma realm. But Mara is the one who's trying to keep you tied to the sense reactivity, especially to that desire and dejection regarding worldly states. If anyone has repeatedly practiced mindfulness of the subjective experience or mindfulness of the Kaya, he has included whatever profitable dhammas there are that partake of true knowledge. This is a really strong statement of the Buddha, that mindfulness, the sati, is the fullness of his teachings. So there's no teaching of the Dhamma that cannot be discovered and developed, experienced, and realized with mindfulness. Just as anyone who extends his mind over the great ocean has included whatever streams there are that flow into the ocean, so too, when anyone has developed, repeatedly practiced mindfulness of the Kaya, of the body, he has included whatever profitable dhammas there are that partake of true knowledge. Then it goes on to say, if they don't develop mindfulness, then Mara can find an opportunity and a support in that person. The person without mindfulness is like a heap of wet clay, and Mara can throw a heavy stone ball at it, and it will sink into the clay. Or that person is like some dry firewood, and Mara can light the fire, and it will produce flame. Or it could be like a person without mindfulness is like an empty pot, and Mara can come and pour some water in the pot, and it will become, all the water will get into the pot because Mara puts it in there because it's empty. So those are the examples of somebody who's not mindful. But a person who is mindful would be, instead of being like a heap of wet clay, you could be like a door panel made of heartwood. And then if someone throws a light ball of string at the door panel, it won't penetrate. Or a mindful person is like a wet, sappy piece of wood. This might be a wood that's been soaked in the same beautiful pond that we had in the analogies just before about jhana. The wood is completely soaked. And then Mara is not able to light it on fire. So the mind which is soaked and drenched in mindfulness is not able to be lit fire. Or they could become like a water pot filled with water right up to the brim, so that a crow could stand on it and could drink out of it. And then if someone tries to put more water into it, they can't, because it's completely filled. So this is how mindful is when it's fully developed. When they developed and completely practiced mindfulness of the Kāya, of the subjective experiencer, mindful of your whole entire subjective experience, you attain the ability to be a witness through realization by direct knowledge of any Dhamma, which can be realized by direct knowledge. So then you would be ready to hear about the Four Noble Truths. You would be ready to hear about the Eightfold Noble Path, and you would be able to comprehend it. We have yet more metaphors about water, which I think tells something about life in those days. If you had a water pot full of water, full to the brim, and it's on a stand, then if you tip it over, the water comes out. And that pouring out is a way in which the Dhamma can be realized by direct knowledge. And then in the next example, there's a square pond on a level piece of ground surrounded by an embankment. This is how, if you're trying to make a desert into a beautiful green forest, you would establish exactly that type of a container. And then during the rainy season, the water would fall on that shallow place that you've made out by building swales on the land. And then the water would gradually sink and penetrate and fill up the aquifer. And then at the time that you needed to grow your crop, if you made an opening in the embankment, then the water would flow out, and it would flow wherever you want it to go. And so this is part of like the ancient practice of agriculture, is to guide the water so that it goes where it's needed to grow the crops. So just as the farmer guides the water, just so the same way one can guide the mind. And so I especially love this example because we see that the world has been so ruined, and there's so many inspiring ways in which humans can, in this very gentle way, make small changes in the conditions that will enable the wetlands to be restored and enable nature to be restored to bring back the balance. And that's the life-giving qualities of water, I think, are used to great beauty with these metaphors. I want to jump ahead to these some of these benefits of mindfulness, which is, again, referring to the idea, especially the idea that with mindfulness, one has learned how to make use of the higher functions of mind, the perceptions and the volitions. I don't mean higher, the more complicated aspects of mind. Instead of those perceptions and formations being used in an unskillful way to make a proliferation that is feeding to increase the craving, increase the reactions. Instead, it's possible to use skillful perceptions and skillful volitions to bring calmness, tranquility, to train the mind, like we saw at the beginning, train the mind to calm down, train the mind to move and incline towards tranquility, and train the mind to be on guard against unwholesome states, to be able to see and recognize them, and to allow that mere mindful recognition of an unwholesome state to be sufficient right there for those reactions to be dispersed quickly. And so the wholesome use of the mind means that we are capable to guard and protect the six senses, which are attached then to this living body, and then we get these benefits. He becomes a conqueror of aversion and delight. Aversion does not conquer him. He abides transcending aversion as it arises. He becomes a conqueror of fear and dread. Fear and dread do not conquer him. He abides transcending fear and dread as they arise. He becomes one who bears cold and heat, hunger, thirst, contact with mosquitoes, flies, wind, sun, creeping things, who endures ill-spoken, unwelcome words and arisen bodily feelings that are painful, racking, sharp, piercing, disagreeable, distressing, and menacing to life. So one becomes able to bear all of that without falling into unskillful formations. He becomes one who obtains at will with no trouble the four jhanas. Well, you might have already thought that one can only theoretically imagine having realized those benefits, or else you may feel that to some extent already through your practice you've begun to realize some of those benefits, that you are capable to obtain jhana, that you are able to bear up to ill-spoken, unwelcome words and difficult, painful body feelings without being driven to become mentally unbalanced because of those things. Then these next few are the supernormal success, which I think that I'm not going to spend much on this, because I think for most people it's part of the story of the Buddha, and it has a kind of a story value about the greatness of the Buddha, or the greatness of the enlightened arhants who had these capacities, being able to have supernatural powers going through space, going through waters, walking on water, so forth like that. Not being having the heavenly ear element, able to hear sounds far away, being able to encompass the mind of others, to recognize directly recognized and see into the mind states of others. Being able to recollect one's past lives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000, 100,000, many eons of previous births. And with heavenly eyesight, to see other beings passing away and reappearing. In a certain way, I feel that this list of the superhuman powers is culminating in the last one. And in a way, it's a bit of a setup because this 10th power is so simple and is so much more significant and valuable than all of the previous superhuman powers. And it is by realizing within himself with direct knowledge here and now, he enters into and abides the deliverance of the heart and the deliverance by understanding that are taint free with the exhaustion of the taints. So this is the epithet for the realization of full awakening. So one may reflect on this sutta to consider especially emphasizing the use of mindfulness to overcome obstacles, hindrances, difficulties, reactions, emotions, all the challenges that we face while we're trying to apply mindfulness, and to replace that reactivity with a clearer seeing, which is got the quality, the level quality, the equanimous quality, and which also has a level of a kind of a freedom, wherein the mindfulness, each phenomenon that comes into awareness is what it is, and it doesn't necessarily need to trigger a reaction. So the cascading of reactions that culminate in old age, sickness, and death, and going on to a rebirth, that cascade is not happening while one is in mindfulness, that one is able to experience each moment as it is, and experience the arising, the existence, and cessation of each moment. And it doesn't necessarily have to go into that cascade. And those are setting up the conditions then that would very naturally mature into samadhi or concentration. And then with concentration, we are coming away from some of these rather than having to withstand the danger of the disgusting aspects of the inside of the body, or without having to withstand the danger of the of death, or having to withstand the danger of pain, having to withstand the danger of being carried away in those ways, that instead within samadhi there is that safe and blissful happiness, which is born from seclusion, and which naturally is inclining towards more levels of more profound tranquility, profound happiness, and that within that state there's ever more greater possibility for clear seeing. I'll pause now, and I appreciate all these greetings. Gregory, Samasiya, Yankee Apple, Kim, Bhumika, Jody, Ryan, Mindy, and Rupa. Any questions or comments about this sutta? Welcome, including from those in the room. Now, there's no questions yet coming in online, so I can give a turn to those in the room if you have a question.
I have a lot of questions. So thank you so much for your teaching. This was very helpful, and yeah, I brought a lot of joy with the different similes. So I was thinking about the four things that you mentioned, like the clear comprehension, being diligent, freedom from reactivity, internal and external. And so, yeah, personally, I feel like, that's been kind of like coming up in day-to-day tasks, and just practicing mindfulness, like the kilesas, like kind of taking over and struggling to bring the mind back. So I know you just, of course, explained the whole sutta, but do you have any feedback on, just personally, I guess, that's helpful and can be helpful?
Usually the question is about feedback on how to use these four tips about mindfulness, clear comprehension, diligence, freedom from reactivity, and the internal external, in order to deal with the difficulties that come up both in meditation and throughout the day. And my main idea is, when the mind goes into thinking, that's the golden opportunity to inquire, what's happening here? What's behind this train of thought? Is the mind, it's either the nandi, or the pleasure, that you're thinking for pleasure because it's enjoyable, but you're thinking about something pleasant, or else you're ruminating about something that's negative and trying to think about how to fix it. And even some little problem, like all of us have duties and responsibilities, and it could be that like during the meditation, while you're on the meditation cushion, then you remember some responsibility that you have, and then you start pondering about how you're going to do that job or fulfill that responsibility. Okay, so actually you could see that you're like not satisfied with having that responsibility not done, that it's uncomfortable to be sitting here and you have a job to do and it's not finished, it's looming over you, and so it's uncomfortable, and so then you can't leave it alone. You have to start rehearsing the solution, because you're trying to achieve it, but it's a rat race. And so if you're able to like recognize it as aversion, then you can apply a cure. So that's I think the most useful thing is these strings of thought that we get into, that is the easiest thing to be carried away with, and to try to look back and say, oh, where's this train of thought coming from? And then try to address that right there. That's my suggestion. Here's a question from Ryan. I heard a big reason why it's so difficult to let go of our attachments is because we have been dependent on our minds for our protection and survival, social and otherwise, for so long, through so many lifetimes. It just makes it hard to let go. Yes. Conversely, letting go of our bodies should be relatively easy then, which would make sense why the Buddha made it the first object of meditation. The craving related to survival of the body is actually pretty powerful. It's just that in our civilization, we might not very frequently encounter that kind of danger, that therefore we might not realize how much attachment we have to the life of this body until we are confronted by some, physical attack or weather disaster or fatal illness or a fatal accident. Then we might discover the fear and attachment that we have. It would be to our benefit if we then can overcome that attachment and that reactivity, and to become calm, even thinking that one's karma is ever so much more important than whatever accident might befall the material body. And so it's also very attainable to go beyond physical fear. Social anxiety is much more insidious and maybe more difficult and more complicated to let go of. But I guess I'm coming to agree with Ryan's comment that the bodily attachment is more of a simple object to let go of. I'm not quite together with this idea that we're dependent on our mind for protection and survival through many lifetimes. The mind and body both are contributing to our survival, and so the operation of the body itself contributes to our survival. The primitive animal-like instincts we have contribute to our survival. Just having the ability, that the example I gave at the beginning of our, that if I take a morsel of food, I'm able to get it out to my mouth, that contributes to the survival. So the simplest things are contributing to our survival. And then like the mental aspect is like a superstructure that's built up on top of it. And so having a great empire and being the king of a nation with a great army and a whole army of bureaucrats providing one's physical safety, and another army of bureaucrats providing for insurance against any kind of mishap or accident, and another army of bureaucrats devoted to trying to protect one's reputation, and so on like that. This is like the extreme example of a lot of the being carried away with an extreme projection of one's or survival. If you build out this the whole like accoutrement of society for safety. The thoughts are much more fleeting and evanescent than the states of the physical body. And in my opinion, thoughts are in a way more deceptive. This is an aspect of evolution. If I'm a great king and I'm trying to conquer a country to the north of me and another country to the south of me, I may try to look bigger and scarier than I really am, so that my enemies will just give up. And then so that this is kind of in any kind of trading or economic activity, or surviving against prey. There are ways that animals use deception to provide their safety. So humans learn deception, and having learned how to deceive, then we also learn how to doubt. And then we get into bargaining, like we think people are trying to trick us. And so then it gets to be like an escalating, it's like there's an escalation that humans become more and more and more skillful at deceiving one another. It's a kind of an arms race of skepticism and deception. And perhaps with artificial intelligence, we've reached the worst maximum of deception, that we're living in a very false kind of a world right now, and one it's hard to be in touch with reality. But if you learn to be mindful of the body, and then like what's in the gut, like your gut reaction, at least it's a truthful statement of what's happening for you right at that moment. And if you want to know what kind of practice is good for you, what kind of practice is bad for you, if you learn how to look within, you can find your happiness within, almost in the state of the body. What is calm and what is agitated? What is physically painful and physically difficult? So that the body is a very good reality check, and that reason it's good to survive. But remember here that I'm saying that this body in this Kāyagatāsati is including the six senses, including the mind sense. So that is what the brain does with the initial apprehension of a thought or an idea. That's the mano. Mano is perceiving a Dhamma. That's the initial thing, but at that level, short of the further building up of different sankharas or different trains of thought, different streams of volitions that come about after that. So we should be aware of our senses. Yeah.
So I'm stuck on right effort and right mindfulness. I always hear right mindfulness, you're just observing, whereas right effort is engaging. So my practice has always been, if I see aversion, I replace it with its opposite.
Mhm.
But it seems like the more I do that, I'm just creating more aversion, and I should just watch the aversion and then it'll go away.
Okay, so the question in the room is that this right effort is the overcoming the unskillful states and cultivating the skillful states, whereas mindfulness is said to be the clear, just seeing as it is. So if you, the downfall of right effort without mindfulness is that it can lead to sweeping things under the rugs or being over controlling or being on a different kind of a rat race of, trying to use like a brute force or something to purify the states of mind. And I mean, this is sort of like there is a certain kind of a way that if evil, unwholesome thought comes into your mind, you should feel horrible and repulsed and ashamed of yourself for having that bad thought, and you should want to immediately cut it off at the root and exterminate it so that it never comes back again. But you can't really do that effectively until after you've developed the mindfulness, and actually on the samadhi as well. After having gained those further states, then it's possible that the right effort can be done in a kind of a much more skillful way. But mindfulness, like whatever comes up, like that evil, unwholesome thought that comes up, you have to accept that it came up. But then having accepted that that's your reality right at that minute, then don't reject that thought outright, but also don't follow that thought. Don't go down the rabbit hole or off in the train of thinking. Don't ignore that thought. Just acknowledge it, and then anchor your mind to the senses. So that gives you a chance to monitor and to know whether your right effort is working or not. So it's a certain way, like you try, struggle and struggle and struggle, you make the right efforts to actually not welcome, not approve, don't delight, don't justify unwholesome states. But then you have to relax in order to find out what have you still got, to do an assessment, to take an inventory of what's the state of mind. And then you take that inventory, and so you find out, oh, I'm not yet an arhat. I still have got, the mind is not yet unsurpassable. The mind is surpassable. I still have these difficulties or these kilesas in the mind. And then and then you go through another cycle of right effort and mindfulness, right effort and mindfulness, going through that cycle one by one. But it's true that mindfulness, the things that you're trying to see are subtle. Like if some thought comes up about the job and you start worrying about the job during your meditation sit, that's to see where that's coming from. That's actually subtle. To understand, so what's the problem with spending your meditation hour planning your job? Well, but there is a problem that defeats the meditation, and so then to see the danger in that train of thought, it takes clear seeing, a lot of clarity to be able to watch and understand, have insight into your internal process. And that's where the mindfulness comes in. If you're just trying to use the right effort, because brute force without the insight, then it won't be successful. Here's a comment from Ayyā. It's my understanding that the instinct to survive is hardwired into the body's cells, not easy to let go, which is why practice is necessary. The instinct to survive is you might be thinking in terms of genetic survival. When they talk about the survival of the fittest, they used to think that meant that like the individual person wants to survive, but then in more modern times, a different scientist said, no, it's the genes that want to survive. So it's not you that wants to survive. So there's something in you that wants your genes to survive. So then even if you have to sacrifice your own life in order to protect your family, that still is in support of genetic survival, because your family has some of the same genes that you have. But survival is it's a deep phenomenon. In a certain way, I think we can make it not that big of a problem. It's like, okay, so my karma was I got born into this life with this body. And so I've got the equipment that comes with being a human being. And so it was my karma that I chose to be born into this body in this time and place. And so I've got to put up with a lot of things in this body. The body is alternately uncomfortable, and each room in this great monastery is uncomfortable in a different way. One room is too hot, one room is too cold, one room gives me some kind of allergic reaction. One room is making too much noise, and so that's how it is. This body has got one problem after another, and part of the problem is the body has just got the survival thing and says, well, I don't have to put up for very much longer. Melanie is my friend, and we laugh about being old, and so we won't have to put up with this very much longer. And so it's completely not necessary, just because we've got that package that comes with having a human body, to have a preference for existence, continued existence, or non-existence. going beyond it. I don't think the two things have to be related. So I think we can make that into not a problem. So I think that may be enough for now. Thank you all for your patient listening, and we'll close by saying sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu anumodami.